Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help other left brain types like myself break out of the spiritual paradigms that they've constructed throughout their lives. Today's Tuesday, so it's kind of a more personal podcast, and I want to start out by giving a shout out to a couple friends that visit me today. I should say several friends, 3 guys that I served with back in the dark ages in Germany when we were in the Army together. And back at that time, I was young and a little bit reckless, I guess, but I was 22 years old, 23 years old, serving in a tank unit with the 1st Armored Division, and 3 gentlemen that were there with me. We were all youngsters at that time. 2 of them were in my platoon. We called ourselves the 3rd Herd, part of A Company, 3rd Battalion, 35th Armor, 1st Armored Division. And 2 of the guys were in my platoon, and another gentleman there was the armor for A Company. But terrific men, and one of them, Terry, was my gunner on my tank. So it's just funny. I have pictures of what these guys look like and me that long ago. It's been about 44 years since we'd last seen each other, but through the miracle of Facebook, we were able to stay in touch. So thank you, Terry and Harold and Ron, for making it down to visit with me today. I appreciate it. And it just reminds me, I've mentioned this before on this podcast about, my West Point classmates. When we all get together, it's just like, time has stood still or time hasn't passed from when we were there and doing the things we were doing and just telling stories, most of them true, to each other about what happened. So thanks, guys. So this podcast today is not the short version. It really is a special treat. It's an interview with a lady that I met because of my experience with orbs, and she has the same type of experience. So her name is Kelly Jo, and Kelly Jo has her own website. I'll put this into the show notes, called orbicaltimes.com. But Kelly Jo has a number of, I would describe as paranormal experiences. So I'm going to let her describe all this as we go through the interview. However, the first part, she talks about some of the experiences that happened with her daughter, Chloe, in their home in Canada. And then the second part of the interview has to do with how she came to see orbs and how that experience went. And the interview really runs about an hour and a half or so. So I cut it in half. And this is the first half. It's about 40-some minutes with Kelly Jo. But I'm really happy to have her share her story. I think you'll enjoy it. And please listen to the first part with the unusual experiences, but also the second part, which is about the orbs. And one other final quick note, the audio is not tip-top like you're hearing me now. We had to do this using something different, and it just was not the best way to do it. So Kelly's audio is pretty good. I'm at the other end of the line, and I sound like I'm talking through a tin can a little bit. But that's what's happening. So it's easy to distinguish my voice and my questions from Kelly's. But I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Hey, everybody. This is Mike Nicholas, and I'm here with Kelly Jo. And Kelly and I met. Kelly, I can't remember exactly how we did it, except that you have a website that deals with orbs, and as I do. Mm-hmm. And my experience has been that there's very few websites out there that have videos of orbs, plenty with pictures. And that's kind of how we came to know each other. Kelly Jo, what I'm going to ask you to do in just a second is to kind of give us some background, introduce yourself. But just to let you know, this podcast is really targeted for people that are left-brainers like I've been. And so what I look for in interviews and podcasts is something to help support the fact that there's something else out there. I always think of how can I be of service to the people that listen to this podcast. And basically it is, I try to give them evidence that there is something beyond this world, beyond this life, and hopefully to bring them some comfort in that way. So that's kind of how I'm going to shape our discussion, if you don't mind. You and I have talked about a couple things story-wise, so I know a little bit, but I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about what you've been involved with. So I'm going to shut up for a second and just ask you, please, if you wouldn't mind telling us more about yourself and kind of how you got involved with
well what you're involved with, please.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking me to come for this interview. I appreciate being on your cast. I'm going to back it up just a second, and because you did mention that we connected in a certain way. So what had happened was I saw your video online, and then I thought, well, I'm compelled now to reach out to you. So every now and then I look for online videos of orbs to see if there's, others who are out there that are experiencing the same thing, sort of like that you and I have. And sometimes I reach out and I ask them if they'd like to contact me, and I either get no reply or I get somebody that says, yeah, I don't think I want to really talk about it on a cast. I'm not comfortable. However, when I reached out to you, I didn't automatically say, hey, I've got orbs too. You want to come on my cast? But but that's how sort of like we connected. And grateful that you reciprocated and that you picked up that little gauntlet and you reached back out to me. So that's how I recall that I sort of met up with you, I guess. Other than that, do you want me to talk about
Sure.
orbs, or do you want me to talk about in the beginning?
I meant to mention to our listeners that you are Canadian.
I am, yeah,
Because
in Ontario.
we have listeners in Canada, so I can pick out how you say the word out.
Out.
That you're from Canada. But yeah,
Yeah.
please, why don't you start from the beginning when you first realized that you had some of the gifts that you have.
You know what? Yeah, here I go. You're not going to get a word in edgewise. um, but okay, so I guess when my first paranormal experience, if you will, I remembered this. I don't know. I guess it wasn't that long ago in the scheme of things. Probably a couple of decades ago. So I was around, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, and I was sitting on the front stoop. So you know how homes can have a walkway leading to its door? Well, this house, it was still in Quebec. It was in a place called Saint Eustache. So I know how old I was when we were there. I was sitting on the stoop and I was facing the road or the walkway, facing the street. So the door to the house was to my left. And I was sitting there crying. And I don't remember why I was crying. Maybe I was a time out or something. I don't know. Anyways, I had a sister of mine who was about a year older than me. She was inside the house remember those metal screen doors, Mike? I don't know if you remember those, but anyways, they had
Sure.
metal on the outside. Yeah. She was inside the house. She had her face pressed up against the screen. But I didn't initially notice her there because my focus was on a man who was in front of me who just seemed to, I won't say materialize because I didn't see him materialize, but he was just in my memory was there. He was an older guy. He was dressed in black. And no, this has nothing to do with men in black. He was in a suit and he had a trench coat on too. And this is the thing I really remember. He was wearing a fedora hat, and not a big one, not a big gangster hat, more of the small ones, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he said something to me like hello or something along those lines. And this is what I really remember. He took his right hand and he brought it up to his hat and he took his hat off and he did like a small bow to me, which was, I don't know, even at the time I thought, wow, like that's different. And I felt like he was there to, I don't know, like to comfort me. And he asked me like what was wrong or why was I crying or something, something along those lines. And I remember him like, so he was there and I was talking to him, but I don't really remember the conversation or even how long it lasted. But what I do remember is my sister was trying to get my attention. And she didn't come outside, which sort of makes sense, perhaps because, I don't know, maybe I was out there for a time out. She wasn't allowed to leave the house because she probably was only around like 4 or 5, maybe 4. So anyways, she was trying to get my attention and she was calling me, but I was busy talking. And I finally turned around and I can say that I was a little miffed, when I look back at that time, because I was talking to this guy And she was wanting to know, like, who was I talking to? What was I doing? And I looked at her and I said, well, there's a man there. And as I turned my head back to him, and she was saying at the same time, well, there's no one there. And he was gone. And I remember feeling kind of like sad and sort of bewildered because I was there. He was just like right there. He was right there close to my feet. And there was nowhere for him to have gone. Do you know what I mean?
Do you remember any type of emotion associated with that, like fear or comfort, or?
Yeah, like I said, I really felt he was there to comfort me, and I was ignoring my sister. It was like don't bother me. Like I'm busy here talking, but I don't remember the content of what we were chatting about. I just, I mean, that was many decades ago. But I just remember him like, hey, what's wrong? Or what are you doing? Or what's going on? Or something along those lines. And I didn't see him walk up. I didn't see him walking across the street or along the sidewalk. He was just there. And then he was just gone. And my sister was like, there's nobody there. Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Even, at that young age.
So at what point, obviously not then, but when did you realize that was unusual?
Yeah, again, I had this memory, a few decades ago and going, oh yeah. And it was probably one of those things, either talking to one of my siblings about things, probably to then my eldest sibling, because she lived in a town where I had yet another weird experience. But I don't know if this is paranormal or not. In a nutshell, it had me driving in a car on, what do they call it? A dark and scary night. No, it was a dark, long road. It was coming up from one town straight with no lights that was heading towards base Borden. So a military base where they do trainings, and it was pitch black. If you turned off the lights of the car, you would not know where you were going. So to have anybody walking along that road is very odd, because I don't know how they would get their footing. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they would probably feel the pavement under them and then know when they're not on the pavement. But there was somebody there that was hitchhiking. I came across them as I was driving, and I could see them coming, and boom, they were there. And I just kept going. And then I thought, oh my gosh, some poor guy, some poor guy is heading up, but it was late at night, probably past curfew, which I didn't realize then. Getting up to base Borden. I cannot at this point recall if he was base Borden, like if he was in a uniform or not. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, I thought, oh my gosh. I looked in the rearview mirror. Of course, everything was pitch black. And I thought, some poor person is trying to get back to the base. And here I am going, oh no, you don't, And I thought, oh man, you've got to be generous. Like everything will be okay. I'm going to slow. And I did. I slowed down and I was about to turn around, and then boom, he appeared again in front of my car. And I went, okay, you know what? I'm putting on the gas. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. My adrenaline was so high. I thought, okay, that was the same guy. Like that was the same guy. And I thought, that's impossible. This is a warning. Keep going. And so I did. Which, I mean, take it for what you will. But I guess in regards to things that have happened in the past, my grandmother, my mother's mother, she could read like tea leaves, and she would predict things. And one story that I can recall, and I don't know if, as stories tend to do as the years go on, maybe I'm inflating it or my memory of it is sideways. I'm not sure. But I do remember that the story went that she predicted a fire, and she told the parents of these twin girls that she had the, I guess, vision, or I'm not even sure at this point, and she's long gone. But apparently there was a fire, and I think that the twins that she was trying to warn the parents about, that they died in the fire. And so the story goes, and this is from my mother, that was from my mother, not from her. She was like called a witch, and sort of taunted about like get out of town. That's like the part of the history that I have, and I can't verify that with her. And even if I had been told that when she was alive, she ended up having Alzheimer's, so that would be pretty hard to sort of confirm those things with her.
At what age did you start to accept that you were having unusual experiences?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think, my sisters, more so than my brothers, we would kind of yak about different things, about, things that would happen, but not really in depth. And I would say probably in my 20s, but even then I just discounted them. I didn't, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just kind of, living life or whatever, and not really paying attention, even to my mother's stories, who she's no longer here, but she had things that I just sort of discounted and went, "What are you talking about?" Do you know what I mean? But we'd always sort of remember some of her tales, and I think a good story because I was a part of that story is that when my father was sick, my parents had been divorced for many years. My father was living out in BC in Canada, and my mother was still in Quebec. And so most of my siblings went to the hospital where he was in BC, even though we had been estranged from him for quite a while. At least I had, and I would say a fair amount for most of the other siblings. But anyways, so we were there. He was sick in bed, and really sick, and we knew he was dying. And one of my siblings, after he passed, phoned my mom to let her know, and she said, "Yeah, I already know." And they're like, well, were you just like guessing, or how did you know this? And she said, "No, I saw him in the daytime." She was apparently outside in the back in her vegetable garden, and she had a sense of being stared at. And she turned around and saw him up on the porch, and he was in his shorts with his bare feet. And I think he had his black, these things were poignant for my mother, his black rim glasses on. And she said that, they just, well, that's all she mentioned, that they just looked at each other and they stared at each other, and then he just disappeared. And so she knew that he had passed.
You, thank you for that. You shared one story with me that I wonder if you could relay again about, I think it's your daughter seeing somebody that was also verified by your mother or your grandmother.
Yeah. So in regards to my daughter Chloe and my mom, I'll give you sort of a thumbnail sketch, I guess, of the event involving, I'm going to call it a ghost / spirit, because it appeared in different forms to my daughter. And so anyways, that happened when my daughter Chloe was around, she was around 4 too. Not 4 too, but 4 as well. And that was in just outside of Ottawa. And this story has a connection, I guess a connecting encounter, I guess, if you will, with my mother. So I want to preface this, though. It's not like I'm giving myself a plug or anything, but by letting your listener know that they can hear Chloe's telling of, and I think that that's important, of her encounters with this spirit in an earlier podcast on Orbital Times. And I'm not sure the number. It might have been 2 or 3 or 4. I don't know. One of those encounters happened when, like I said, when she was around 4, and this happened in our home in Ottawa. So it was early in the morning, and I think it was a weekend because we were sort of sleeping in, and my husband and I were still in bed, and Chloe entered the room. So again, she was around 4 years old. She crawled up between us, and I guess we tried to encourage her to lay quietly because, we were tired and we wanted to get back to sleep, but I didn't, but my husband did, of course. And as I lay there, I had my eyes closed, And I remember feeling like something shifted, or I don't know. There was just that feeling that something was up. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyways, I opened my eyes, and I mean, she was right there beside me to my right, and her eyes were wide open. And right away, I just felt it on there. Something like, I said something like, what's wrong, or what's up, or something along those lines. And she said, Mommy, she either said like there is, or there was just a man that's looking into the door. And by that she meant the door to the bedroom, to our bedroom. And I knew she was telling the truth. I always had that sense from her. She played a lot, but she never had a make-believe friend. That just wasn't her jam. It wasn't her MO. Anyways, I didn't want to I didn't want to panic her, and I didn't want her to detect the panic that was sort of, I felt was rising. And I thought, oh my gosh, because right away I knew she was telling the truth. But I didn't want to blow off what she was saying. So I started to ask her questions like, casually, oh yeah, like, where is he? What's he doing? What does he look like? That kind of thing. And she, without any hesitation, came back with the answers. And so what she described was, she said, well, it's that man, because she had seen him before in the physical form, which I won't get into right here. She talks about that in that episode. But she was mentioning that he was the man. He had black, slicked back hair, like gel or something. So that was pretty specific. He was wearing a red checkered shirt. He had on, and I can't remember. And what I mean is, I can't remember even from interviewing her. It wasn't jeans. I think she recognized there was some sort of work pants. I think she might have said like daddy's pants, so the brown ones. So before jeans were popular, I mean, people used to wear.
Me she had described something like a work attire or something.
Yeah, I think she was thinking of like the blue ones or the brown ones, like her dad's. But she also mentioned that he had like straps on him, and what she meant was, geez, no, I forgot the name. Suspenders. Exactly. So that's what she meant. Anyways, so so she started to tell me about that, and I asked her if he was still there, like as she was telling me, giving me replies, and she said no, that he left. And she had told me this before, he didn't like us, but now she was really concerned. She was actually frightened, because the way she was seeing him, and she told me this, was, she called it, instead of saying the word translucent, she said he was sparkly, and that she could see through him, but see him. And that really confused her, and that made her afraid, because she was seeing him in the physical before. So he was, for her, right there in the room. And again, without getting into it, yes, there was times that this had happened, and I heard her dresser move away from the wall, and there's no way she could have moved it. And I said, what's going on? And she said, it's okay, I'm just playing with him. And I said, who? But again, I'm not going to get into that. So I knew that it was the same ghost or spirit that she was referring to. So that was something that, I didn't talk about. I told my husband, but he was like, she probably is just dreaming. And I said, no, she's not. She's not just dreaming. Anyways, proceeding that event. And again, I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody about it, except again for my husband. So my mom had come to visit. This was after the fact, and I don't know, 2 or 3 days. I can't remember. I know it was in the summer still, and that this event also took place not during school for Chloe. So my mom was visiting. So one night she woke up screaming, right? And she said she had a dream of a man who was asking her for help. He was asking her, she said, like over and over again, for help. Can you help me? I need help. And she said that he had his his hand, like outstretched to her. And of course, I pulled the old, it was just a dream, don't worry about it. And yeah, and then she described what he was wearing, which matched, too close to what Chloe was talking about. The greaseback hair, the dark hair, the checkered shirt, the suspenders, all of those things. And I'm like, oh my God, okay.
Was this in the same house?
This is not in the house where I am now, but in that house outside of Ottawa. Yeah.
And your mother.
Yeah, because that time frame, it again, her visiting preceded the event with Chloe in the bed with us. And now, how long passed? I don't know. A week, a month? I'm not sure. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so your mother described this dream and described this individual, and then Chloe later described the same guy.
No, Chloe's event happened first, not preceding. Like Chloe's event preceded, my mother's visit proceeded Chloe's event.
Okay.
So my mother visited, and after the fact of what happened to Chloe.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling with pre and pro.
So
Got it.
It's okay. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. I don't know.
That's okay.
Okay. And so when she started saying that, I was like, oh my God. So I didn't say anything. I waited for the next day and I said, look, I wasn't going to tell you, but here's what happened. And she said, okay, there's something else that happened that I didn't tell you about. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Bring it on. What are you talking about? She said, while we were talking the other day, is what my mother was saying to me. Let's say this was the morning chat. She said, yesterday, while we were talking, this is so weird. She said, I saw a round circle in back of you with a man's face in it. Okay. And I'm like, and I said to her, what? What are you talking about? And she said, it was a circle with a man's face. It was the same guy that I had a dream about. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Like a circle? What do you, I had no idea about like the concept really of orbs back then. Yeah. I didn't know what she was talking about. And, I feel bad about it now instead of going, oh, wow, do tell. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Isn't that interesting? And all she could say after hearing about Chloe's encounter was, you should bring a priest. You should bring a priest into here to bless this house. And I was like, no, like, no. And, she was worried about this guy. She was really worried. She said, I think that he needs help. I really feel bad. I think you should bring a priest in. She was already like praying for him, if you know what I mean. And apparently he was giving her good feels, but had contempt for us. From Chloe's memory, and she had told me this before, that man in the house doesn't like you guys, Mummy. He likes me, but he doesn't like you two. And I'm like, what? We never even spanked you as a child. What's the problem?
So what was the resolution to all this? I mean, did you just leave the house and leave him there, or what?
Well, we did end up leaving. And the funny thing is, I spoke to my best friend, who I never talked paranormal with. She just, because I knew she wasn't into it. I didn't really talk about it back then. And I said to her, here's something weird. I think we might have brought his energy back and with us, into the house. I hope that isn't the case, into where I am now. And she was like, what are you talking about? You're weird.
Have you seen him since?
No, I've never seen him. And either had, and the same with Chloe. And she would have told me. Okay. So no, thank God. I hope he's just resting it out still there. But yeah, after that, I knew my mother would tell my sisters. So I told them about it, and they had the same response, bringing a priest. You know what I mean?
Are you Catholic?
I was brought up a Catholic, but I'm no longer a practicing Catholic.
So, me too. So when your mother said bring a priest, she was speaking about a Catholic priest.
Yeah. Yeah, a priest as opposed to a minister. Sorry. I automatically use the word priest to equate with a Catholic clergy, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So Kelly Jo, since you got into orbs there a little bit, can you tell us how the orbs started for you?
Sure. I'm going to have to, I think it's probably good to sort of back it up just a wee bit. And I should mention Rocky the cat's toy. So Rocky the cat, that was my daughter Chloe's cat. She got him from the shelter, and this was in either the summer or heading towards the fall of 2019. Okay.
Okay.
So we got the cat, named it Rocky, got Rocky some toys, and one of those toys was a round plastic battery operated cat toy. And to get really specific, the red one. So anyways, so he had that. And again, still in 2019, it was around 3:00. It was around 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was on my way from my room to the washroom, and at the corner of my eye to the right, I noticed the cat ball was flashing. It was located on the floor in my daughter's room near what I'll call a cat tree. Those,
Sure.
yeah, okay, good. Yep. I don't have to explain that. Okay, good. So it was flashing. And I stopped there, and I don't know why, I knew, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to see this. This is not caused by Rocky. It wasn't just played with. And it was the kind of ball that one has to manipulate in order for it to start flashing on and off. I could see that my daughter and the cat, my daughter was in bed, the cat was curled up beside her. I could see that because my daughter had the curtains in her room open, and the light was sort of from the road was sort of illuminating some of her room. So I could see that. And the cat wasn't moving. And so I thought, but still, it might have been the cat. Whatever. So I went to the washroom, and I knew when I got out of there, it would still be going. But I thought, whatever. I left.
This only lasts for a short period of time when it is activated, right?
That's right. And, I think at one time I did actually time it out. And so I don't know. It's been a while. I'm going to give it 10 to 12 seconds. That's what I'm thinking. And maybe that's generous. I don't know. But I came back out, and it was blinking, and I stayed there, and it stopped, and then it started again. And I went, okay, something's up. And I went back to bed. That was it. And then in the morning or in the afternoon, whatever, I talked to Chloe about this. And I said, Lois, listen, this cat toy went off, and I think, and she said, yeah, probably. just like that. Deadpan. No, she said, yeah, probably. There's probably something in the room. And I'm like, okay, then. So.
Now, how old was she then?
So she should probably back then. No. So back then she would have been probably around 14, maybe. Yeah. In
2019?
Oh, yeah. Did I? Yeah. So I said 2019. Yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh. So she's 25 now. So bring it back, whatever that was.
That's because that's the case. She's getting married at 16.
Yeah. So 20. So sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. You know what? Okay. Because when we moved in here, she was around 11 years old, and we had, before the flashing light thing, again, not really getting into it, we had some paranormal issues here involving mimic voices, involving her hearing scratching on her walls, and just kind of the smell of perfume or the smell of smoke, things like that had happened, which again, we were aware of it, and we didn't plunge into it. So I guess,
but she had basically accepted these things as paranormal, and so the flashing ball was not a huge surprise to her.
It wasn't. It wasn't. For me, I was still saying, "Hey, maybe it could be, or maybe the batteries have to be changed, or all of those, right? All of those things."
That's what I would think.
Exactly. Or maybe there was a truck that rolled around outside, or maybe it was picking up a vibration, or all of those things I tried to sort of put in to that equation. But anyways, yeah. So she doesn't seem to be too surprised or really moved, if you will, by that. So from that, if you just sort of go up to March 2020, and that for me was when I first I guess, captured orbs on video anyways. We had a few orbs in our digital pictures that, again, we just sort of went, whatever. When we first moved into the house, big ones too, in the empty house that we started, taking pictures of. But we didn't give it a lot of credence. Anyways, in March 2020, and I'm realizing a lot of things seem to be or have been happening for people around that timeline. And maybe it is because people were at home, locked away or something. But I know at this point, I don't think the lockdown yet had occurred because it was in early March, but it was still in everybody's, it was still in my psyche. I know that. So anyways, I had been using, up until that point, a BlackBerry, and I got a new phone. And so I was just in my bedroom, and I didn't have the video going, but I remember being in the video section, looking through the phone and going, oh my gosh, this has a flash on it, because the BlackBerry didn't.
Uh-huh.
And while I was doing that, things were like flying by. And I thought, wow, is this ever dusty in here? Okay. Yeah. So I'm like, what is, and then when I saw them elongate, I'm there, what is going on? So I still, I was still fooling around with the camera. And then I started to videotape, not with the intention of where are you? It was just, okay, so the videotape works this way, and I put it on, and the flash can, all of those things. And then that was my first video of orbs. 2 orbs came in. They were on the, what I'd call bluish side. And they came in, originally I thought it was in through the bedroom door, but when I slowed down the video, it looked like they came through the wall. So whatever, they came through that direction and they passed in front, and I was in the video, which maybe I should have, but I didn't leave that audio in. I was like, what is that? What did I just see? What the heck was that? That kind of thing. And then I looked at it over and over and over again, and I thought, oh my gosh, like those are orbs. And then from there, it just was a journey down filming.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
When you said those are orbs, where'd that term come from for you?
I don't know, because I'm sure that I must have encountered it. Maybe I saw it on shows. I doubt it back then, but maybe it was, here's what I equate this to, Mike. I can remember there was an event in my life, and I'm talking a few decades ago, and I was talking to my sister, and I won't get into what happened, but it was a pivotal moment. And I said to my sister, I don't know why I left that. It was as though, and I use this term, it was as though a spirit guide had helped me. And she said, a what? And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't even know why I use that term. I don't even know what that is. So so it sort of was like that. And I'm sure I must have come across that terminology. But again, without ever really digging into it or exploring it. And I don't know, sorry. I don't even know. I think my daughter was the first one to have a computer, before even we did, to go out, to search for things and explore things on YouTube. Yeah, that wasn't happening. So somehow I knew I can't, if I ever remember, what it was, I'll let you know. I think, I do remember seeing these round circles in our digital photographs and going, oh yeah, look at those. They must be orbs. But why and how, and I don't know.
Now, for the skeptics out there, what convinced you that what you were seeing through the video was not dust?
Because in the initial stages, what I would do is I would like shake something or like puff a pillow, or, move a comforter and film that and see what I got. And as I filmed in different rooms, mostly in my bedroom, but along the way, I noticed that what I call these guys, these guys would appear sometimes solid or opaque. They would seemingly, and I mean, I have video of that, but come out of the closet or out of the door or up in the floor or something along those lines, and they would come towards me. And as they were doing so, they would sometimes change in density, in intensity, things like that. So I went, well, dust doesn't do that. So yeah. Or especially when they would elongate. And one that I have that had split apart. I mean, it split apart and it circled back. And that was pretty fantastical for me. And yeah, there's no way. I don't care what anybody says. And really, it wasn't about what anybody said. For the longest time, I kept this to myself. Share for over a year with anybody. I was just taking these things like incognito in my house, you know what I mean? In the room, and they would appear during the night or during the day. It didn't really matter.
Kelly Jo, were they always moving, or were they ever like stationary? Because there's a lot of people with pictures of orbs, but when you do the video, are they always moving?
Yeah, the only time that I could say stationary is, and then even then, when you look at it on video, is they would, like, one looks like a tulip as it stayed in front of the camera. So for me, they were always in movement. There was always an energy to them. Except for once when I saw them coincidentally in the washroom. That may have been something to do with water. I'm not sure, but I saw them close to the floor and they looked like, well, now what I'd call plasma, but I called it jelly because I didn't know what other terminology to give them. And I said to Chloe, because I didn't have a phone, that she had, she had all the good equipment, if you will. And I remember yelling out to her saying, "You've got to come in here with your camera. I need you to film something." You know what I mean? I said,
you weren't seeing these with your naked eye, or were you?
Yeah, no, this one I was. And that's why I called her in and I said, "Chloe, can you see this over here?" And she said, "Nope." And I said, "Film it." So she put on her video. I said, "Turn on the flash." I said, "Can you see something now?" And she said, "Yep."
So you initially saw it with the camera and the flash. Or the light, I guess. It's not really a flash,
right?
The
torch. Yeah, leaving the torch on, yeah.
But you were able, I didn't know this before when we were talking, you were able to see the orbs, if you will, with your naked eye.
Yeah, that only happened once, Mike. And why, I don't know. And I was a little freaked out, to be honest, because I didn't know what it was. They were just in shapes of circles. And really, they weren't moving.
What color was it?
It was like jelly. It was clear, but it was also, again, it's hard to think of I don't know what you can think of it as, not even a bubble. There was a clear density to them. I don't know how else to explain that or describe it.
Was it 3D to you or 2D?
Oh yeah, like I didn't go and poke them. Although looking back, I should have. Do you know what I mean?
But I mean, did it appear like a ball in 3 dimensions or just as a circle, 2 dimensions?
No, it was 3-dimensional for me. And it was like, there it is. It was jelly, like I say plasma. I don't even know if that's the correct term. But that was the only time. And maybe it wasn't an orb. That's what I thought that it was. And that's what she saw through the through her camera.
Yes.
And she had filmed orbs before through her camera because I had requested to her, again, yelling to her saying, "Come down to the living room. I think there are, you've got to come here and film me. Something's going on," because I was smelling an intense smell of roses in our living room. And I said to her, can you see anything? She said, "Yep."
Okay, that wraps up part 1 of my interview with Kelly Jo. I'm going to get the other second part out here either Thursday or a little before that if I can edit it by then. Thank you for listening. Again, if you want to reach me, I'm available through my website, MikeNicholas.com, or my email, mike@MikeNicholas.com. I'd be happy to hear from you and respond to any questions or comments that you might have. And again, if you'd like to leave a like or a follow for the podcast, I really appreciate it, or any type of review and comments are also appreciated. Thanks for now. Bye-bye. Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help other left brain types like myself deal with spiritual issues and unleash our souls from spiritual paradigms that we've created throughout our lives. Part of that effort deals with accepting things that are supernatural or paranormal. And this is part 2 of an interview with Kelly Jo. And Kelly Jo is a woman who has experienced a number of orb things like I have, but also other paranormal or supernatural things. In part 1 of the interview, she talked about some of the spirits that she saw or supernatural experiences she had. And also she got into the orbs towards the end of that first interview. So part 2 here is more about the orbs. I'm going to pick up with the last story that she was telling, where she was smelling a strong sense of roses. And then she talks in this particular session about the orbs, kind of about what they mean. And she also gets into a UFO experience and a couple other little unusual or supernatural type things. So I'm so grateful that she had the time to do this interview. It really is an opportunity for you to hear from someone who lives with this every day. This is something that Kelly Jo and her family, particularly her daughter, they've experienced throughout their lives, and they live with it now. So it's kind of cool and exciting to me at the same time. I hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.
And she had filmed orbs before through her camera because I had requested to her, again, yelling to her, saying, come down to the living room. I think there are, you've got to come here and film me. Something's going on, because I was smelling an intense smell of roses in our living room. And I said to her, can you see anything? She said, yep.
That's interesting. So the rose smell, I had not heard you say before either. So what are the types of indicators indicate to you that orbs are present or that you might want to film them?
For me, only now is either the flashing cat toy and or a motion censored light. And I'm sure that there are other things, devices that people can use. But back then, there was just a feeling that I had that they were in the room. I didn't have the cat toy, I don't think, at that time to go, hey, because as time went on, what I did was I went, hey, the cat toy's flashing. That's weird. I'm now capturing orbs on video. That's strange too. I'm going to see if there's a correlation. And that's what I did. And there was.
So when the cat toy flashed, you would begin filming and see the orbs?
Yes, but in order to see orbs or to capture them, the cat toy doesn't always have to flash.
Right.
But when it is flashing, for me, something is going on. Or lately, when the light by my bed, which is a motion censored cell light, which is not facing me, but facing the wall, will still go on. And well, we don't have to get into that if you don't want to, but that's what woke me up when I got a hold of you at 11:11 and 12:12 at night. It woke me up, yeah. So that might be, we can go back to that later if you want, but that is basically, I think, the connection with the cat toy for me and the orb. And I guess why I felt compelled to tell you about the cat toy, and I had a strong feeling that it would work for you, and that you'd also be open to the idea, because when I say cat toy to people, especially to those folks in the paranormal community, they're not very
Yeah, they've
many
got all
are
the
open to
whiz
that.
bang toys that they use to try and sense
Yeah, and
paranormal stuff.
they're not big proponents of orbs, different than what I'll call the supernatural or spiritual community.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. So let me just ask you two other questions about the orbs, and then we'll circle
Sure.
back to the reason you mentioned the thing about the time. Do you see any type of pattern or picture or texture to them?
No, those little guys, they appear in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they've appeared when I've asked them to. They appear sometimes in a triangle formation, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know. They appear different colors. Sometimes they'll change colors in flight. I believe that they have as weird as this sounds, a consciousness to them, only because I've talked to them, and I usually either well, that's the other thing that the light for me provides, some sort of indication that it's a validation for me too. Not just, validation with the videos should be enough, but it doesn't hurt to have extra toys around, I guess. And I think that I told you, Mike, that at one time somebody reached out to me. They were a medium, and they saw my videos, and they said, "Yep, you got orbs, that's for sure." But they felt that there was one benevolent being that was sort of, I don't know if in control is the right word, probably not, but that was sort of there. And you know what? I think they're right.
Well, that kind of leads to my second question, which is kind of the $1 million question. And, folks who are listening to this podcast, might wonder, as I did, if I was myself from 5 years ago, what's the point of all this? What do you think these things are, and why do they exist, or why are you seeing them?
Okay. So it's a good question, and I'm sure that you found, and other people that have seen orbs have found themselves, asking that. So I think, like you, I filmed them, I saw them, I recognized them, and it led me on a journey. And I guess the overused phrase of a download is exaggerated for myself, but it did seem to expand my world as far as, I guess, the spiritual world. Or maybe I should say spirituality. I'm not sure. But it did send me on a path of documenting that, then doing a web page. I initially started the YouTube because it was free, and then the web page. And I don't need YouTube, really. I can just put them on the web page. But before I couldn't. So I had to make a link to YouTube. And then, and now a podcast. And honestly, and I still think this way, is that probably not very many people have seen or have heard my podcast. And I don't care. Now, I don't mean it to sound crass, but
I understand.
it was for if one person could relate to it and go, "Oh my goodness, I have that too." Okay, that's what I felt that I was supposed to do. That's what it was for. And so it never was about me being out there. And as you know, I'm just not one for being out there. And I've always been sort of attracted to the idea of, I don't know, connecting with people via voice. I'm still, I didn't get rid of my landline not long ago. And there was always something about the voice for me that held a good connection, because I think people can get distracted by other things if they're not just listening to what you're saying. But true to point is I do have a YouTube video, but again, I'm not out there. I think it's only been the last 2 videos where I just threw up a little image of myself going, oh, should I even do that? Do you know what I mean? And like, who
Yeah.
cares? Because it's not about me. So, but somebody was saying, oh, you need to make a connection. And I said, I think that the people that will find it will find it. I think that that's sort of what I'm going at. And so again, not to, not to sound, I don't know, coarse or anything. It's just not my jam to be trying to get X amount of likes. I even turned off the like button and the comment button, and people are saying, oh my gosh, you shouldn't do that. Like, people want to be engaged. That community wants to be engaged. And I'm still of the philosophy, and maybe it's wrong, that those that were meant to listen will find it. Now, people have said, well, yeah, but if you really put yourself out there, you're going to then capture a wider audience. And that might be true, but I'm just not there yet. I'm still on the road to, I'm just creating a podcast and sort of figuring those aspects out. And even in regards to being interviewed, I've only done a few interviews, Mike, and the ones that I have, I've never listened to them. I've never gone to listen to them. Now, not to say I probably should have turned them on to give, those people a, hey, one other person has listened to your podcast or whatever. But those people anyways they had a lot of, people listening, and they were of the paranormal variety. So
yeah, I think the people that I know that want to speak to you and interview you, it's about the paranormal stuff. I frankly am more concerned about what it's done and how it's changed you, because
it has.
that's been my experience.
I
Has it changed your opinion of religion or what happens after death or that kind of thing?
I think you wanted to talk about, what is it, eschatology or something like that?
Oh,
right?
eschatology.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. So, I mean,
it just means the process of death and dying and judgment and heaven and hell.
Sure.
But
it's sort of like what the dogma is. And I'm going to have to say, because I'm no longer a practicing Catholic, but I do believe that death is not the end, and that's still their same dogma, and that the soul does continue on.
Right.
However, I'm not sure, about the whole heaven and hell, purgatory thing. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I guess that kind of thing reminds me of, Dante, if you will.
Do you think that there is this is kind of do you believe in Satan?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose there may be evil, but I believe that, here's what I think. And this has only been of late. I have heard of reincarnation, obviously years ago, but it wasn't something that I gave too much thought to. But now I'm like down for it. Do you know what I mean? I am a believer for it, and it's kind of like being my jam, because I've started to really listen to NDE stories and those NDEers,
Right.
And
I believe
near-death experience,
right.
Yeah, and I believe in what they're saying, and even if that's their truth, but I do believe in what they're saying, and somehow through this journey, and I know you're familiar with him, I came across Dr. Mike Newton's book. So I guess it's Life Between Lives.
Yeah.
And it had a nerve with me, and I went, yeah, you know what? This makes sense, because in these last couple of years, I've been wondering, like, is our higher self up there? Is part of my soul up there looking down? Does it know what's going on? I just don't know here in this body, but it does. And it's those kinds of queries that I've been sort of tapping into and wondering about. I had an interview with a guy who was all about Bigfoot. And at the time I said, well, where I grew up, it wasn't a thing just because of the geographical, outlay of where I where I grew up. But since that interview, and not that long after, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's true. Maybe they are there. Who's to say that they're not? But it wasn't that long ago, Mike, that I was like, what are you kidding me? Bigfoot? Get real, or like Mothman, like
Or
please.
aliens.
Well, but I've seen a UFO. So that is something aliens, no, aliens is something that I always believed in. And I don't even know why. And there was nobody else that, I mean, I would say that to even my daughter would sort of nudge me and kind of make fun. But she was still had enough grace to say, no, mommy, I know that that's what you believe, And that is just something that I always have believed. And I don't think that that's why I saw a UFO, because on one of the 2 occasions, Chloe also was with me to see a UFO. But again, so, if people are interested, and I've said this before, and again, not being curt, I really enjoy talking to people about their paranormal experiences, and also about their UFO experiences. But my UFO experience is like, I think giving birth naturally was more of a highlight in my life than I don't know, than seeing that. It was odd. It was strange. I wasn't particularly fond of the encounter. I didn't have good feels about it. And really that's it. I don't really go on talking.
If you have the time, I still want to get back to the question of where I'll tell you what, why don't we talk first, just to close the door on this thing about the time when you woke up at those 2 separate times, because that relates, I think, to my wife, right?
Oh yeah.
And then if you wouldn't mind explaining the UFO thing, this will probably be a multi-session podcast.
Yeah, the UFO. Okay, so let's get back to something more interesting.
No, I want to hear about the UFO thing too, but
yeah,
because I teased it earlier, just explain about what happened when you woke up those 2 times.
Yeah, I will. Okay, so I was laying in bed, I was sleeping, I was on my back, and the motion sensor light started flashing. Again, it's facing the wall. And I even have clothes on it, okay? And you're thinking, what are you doing with it then? Well, sometimes when I, have to get up and, I'm backtracking, but our dog, Molly the dog, is 16. And so she's having some issues, right? So I have to get up. We have to get up a lot to make sure that she's okay and that she is let out and those kinds of issues. So I keep this light by my bed, and then I just pick it up, and it's good to go, and I won't bump into things.
Right.
So, yeah. So anyways, it's there. It's facing the wall. It's got clothes on it. It's lighting up. It wakes me up. I don't know how long it was flashing for. I have no idea. All I know is I opened my eyes and I looked at the ceiling, because we have one of those clocks that you can look up at the ceiling and see the red light, and it said 11:11. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I literally went over on my left side and I said, not now. Like, I'm going back to sleep, which was, that wasn't odd, because I do have the feeling that when that goes off, it's like, yeah, okay, I know you're there. Thanks, whoever you are, for being there. Good. Go back to sleep. So 12:12, I'm back on my back, because I wake up and the same thing. My eyes shoot open. I see the light flashing. It's turned on, it turns off. And I had looked at the clock and I'm there, 12:12. So I'm there. I literally thought, if I did not even say this out loud, like, what do you want? Like, what's going on? And I do. I either said this or I thought this. Like, what is it? What do you want me to know? And that's when I saw in my mind's eye, you at the foot of your wife's bed. You were by her feet. Now, the interesting thing was, I knew it had something to do with you and your wife's feet, and that I was supposed to tell you. And I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to tell Mike, but I mean, I don't know you that well. And how do you say, hey, Mr. Mike, you should know that you're supposed to rub your wife's feet. So I didn't want to say that because I also had the feeling that you may not be that kind of dude that does that, because some people do, some people don't. And so what I did was I cloaked it in a text like something along the like, does she need a spa day? Maybe her nails or her hair or her feet, like, and that was it. And then to my surprise, and I knew you were like, okay, hold that thought. I got to talk to you. Don't tell me anything. Like,
Yeah,
don't tell me
just to
too
pick
much.
it up for our listeners here. You sent me a text saying that, spa day, whatever, but you did mention something about feet, and I thought,
Oh yeah.
and just that day, my wife is in bed. She hasn't done much with her feet at all, and I decided to start doing this, without getting the whole thing, but rubbing her feet with this lotion and cloths and stuff. And I really went to town just the day before and the day that you texted me, and I thought, what the heck are you talking about? And then I asked you to call me because I wanted to have you tell me what you had seen or sensed without
Yeah.
telling you about that. And you, again, when we talked, you first told me about, massage or spa day or whatever. And then I told you what was going on. And then you said, well, really, it is just about the feet.
It is. Yeah.
So-
I can't tell you. I almost, and I should have sent an email to myself, like, so that you could see, like, that I wasn't like, oh, no, that's what I was talking about, Mike. I knew, or I didn't know. The impression that I had was that you needed to rub her feet for circulation. Like, it was about rubbing her feet, not just like, I'm putting nail polish on you, honey. It was, this was supposed to be a therapeutic, if you
Yes.
will, move.
That's exactly what I had done. And oddly enough, she's been there now over 8 months, and I did it maybe once 3 or 4 months ago. But now that she's starting to get a little more active, I decided to do it, more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just that the day before and that day that I did it. And so when you mentioned that, I thought, what the heck? Where's this coming from?
That's what I was saying. What the heck? Where is this coming from? At 12. That's a whole other, not quite a whole other podcast, but even the 11:11, the 12:12, the 3:33, those kinds of things have been happening in rapid sequence for me. Oh, and by the way, if anybody's listening, okay, and they can tell me what's up with the name Chicago, I would really appreciate this, because this has been happening way too much for me. In the written word, on shows, on podcasts, on just all over the place. I don't know what it's about, but it's about something. So if somebody's listening and can let me know, I even mentioned it to other people, and I said, have you been noticing the word Chicago? And they're there, yes, we have. And I'm there, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been using the word Chicago a lot lately, but only because I use the term Chicago style, which is the bibliography that I'm writing for my book has got to be done a certain way.
Oh my God.
And I'm using Chicago style to do that, but I don't think that's related to whatever you're sensing.
I don't know. Besides, 25 or 6 to 4, that's like the only thing that I know. And I hear that they have good pizzas. But you know what I mean? And it's just been coming up too much. Now, it might be one of the, once you recognize it, then you're, then you're keeping it in your mind. But
Yes.
I swear, if I don't go a day without the word, and sometimes I'll say to my husband, did you put that on purpose? Did you know that they were talking about that? And he's like, no, I didn't know. I was just, listening to this podcast, and they were talking about, what was it? Tylenol? They were talking about that, which occurred in Chicago. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Just things like that. So the 11:11, the 12:12, I didn't pay attention. And when it happened the second time that night, I knew, okay, there's something I'm supposed to pay attention to. Fine, whatever. Lay it on me.
Not that I needed it, but that was just another validation for me that there's something going on, or there's an intelligence or a consciousness that is active, that certainly exists outside of your consciousness or mine, that was involved in that.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know if it's, angels. I don't prescribe to the color scheme that much, but
No,
I don't know if
I
it's
don't
loved
either.
ones.
I just interpret it as a validation, Kelly Joe, that
Mhm.
that they're, hey, not that I needed it, but we are here. We are
It-
around.
yeah, absolutely. Especially when you can get like a few EVPs, but even then, Mike, when you have filmed it and you see it, and there's still a part, at least I think for you and I, there's still a part of your brain that goes, really, is it? And you're going to have pushback of people going, yeah, that's just dust, dude. Like, get over yourself.
I'm sorry, but what is EVP?
Um, electronic voiced phenomena. Sorry. Yeah. So when you're recording,
Oh, and you hear somebody like,
yeah, I should send you one. Actually, I think I will. And it was one that I took a video, and I had a sense that there was something in the hall, in my hall here at this house. And I'm there, okay, I'm filming. And then I'm there, oh, you know what? I've got to stop. And when I listened to it, and I think I have it up on you have to have earbuds on, but when I listened with earbuds, I heard, tss, tss. There was somebody right there, right there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
every time I hear that, it reminds me of that you're too young for this, but back in the day, if you played a certain Beatles song backwards, supposedly they were saying Paul is dead.
Paul is dead.
And
Yeah.
I remember
Paul is dead.
destroying
The
I don't know
White
how many
Album.
albums trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, you will hear too, people that are doing paranormal research. I think there's some people out there that play also play the tapes backwards. I think no, you know what? Don't hold me to this, but there's a guy out there, because I'm pretty sure I reached out to him, but he never contacted me. He does something with animal voices, animal sounds, barking, sheep, sheep noises. He said, "Oh, you know what your dog is really saying?" And then he plays it backwards. Have you ever heard of that? Right. Right.
No, I mean, I'm prepared to believe a lot of stuff. I'm not quite into that yet.
I
But,
know. I know. And I was sort of like, okay,
I
this
haven't heard
is a
sheep
lot
noises.
of yards away from me too, of where I'm willing to go. So I haven't, no, I haven't reached that yet. Not to discount them for people that believe that. If they can hear it, well, good for them.
Kelly Joe, can you just, we finish, I guess, at least for now,
Yeah.
because we could probably go on for hours here, but can you just tell your UFO story?
Well, how about I tell one of
stories?
how about I tell one of the two? Because the
Please.
other one, Chloe, is involved, and again, she yaks about that, and she's very articulate about it, and probably does a much better job, anyways, than I did. But I will tell you about the one that I saw when I was walking Molly the dog. So I'm out. It was around 10 o'clock at night. My husband was up in the kitchen. Maybe it was 9. It was dark out, so I know that there was no snow. But I know that it was of the cooler months because, well, it was dark out at that time.
So how long ago would this have been?
Okay, so let's say around 8 or 10 years ago. I don't have a date on that. Sorry, Mike.
Okay.
I don't. But it is while I was at this home. And actually, seeing that was one of the things too that I tried to wonder, hey, because I saw that before noticing the orbs. And I wonder if there was a correlation between that and seeing the orbs. And now I don't think there is, but I don't know that. But anyways, I'm out walking the dog and it is kind of late. But anyways, I go out with her and it's a sort of a misty, kind of night. It's not foggy. It's not raining, but it's like that. And of course, it was quiet. Not of course, but we live in a quiet neighborhood anyways. And so it was quiet. And there was nobody else around. And we don't have the traffic where we are. We just, it's a walkable neighborhood. So I went down the driveway to my left, made another left at the corner. We're walking, and about 2 houses in a place that There was no trees. There's nothing there that makes me go, hey, what's going on here? Like, I was compelled to look up. And I looked up and I saw lights. Okay. Now I couldn't see a craft. I could see, this sounds corny, but you know, the kind that are like dome shaped. Like if you took more than a pie plate, if you took a bowl and you flipped it, do you know what I mean? If you're holding a bowl. Okay.
Like a dome. Yeah.
Yeah, like a dome. Yeah, exactly. So I saw, I think it was 3 lights up there. I looked up and I'm there. My brain, instead of going, I wonder what that is, like, that's weird, right away, unlike the other event that I was like, what is that? I was like, that's a UFO, like right away. And I felt the adrenaline rush. I felt my knees. I felt like I was going to collapse. Molly was oblivious. She wasn't
How
like,
close
look.
was it to you?
Well, that's the interesting thing. Now, it was what I consider between 2 homes. And here, because they're what's considered Victorian homes, and when they built these homes over 100 years ago, there wasn't, for the most part, a lot of space in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And how high? I know that, again, that's such a tricky thing, do you know? But it was like I was looking at it. And of course, the night may have distorted where this actually was, right? The atmosphere. But I wasn't like squinting and looking way up at the star. It wasn't like that. It was like right there, like above the rooftop. Do you know what I mean? That's
okay.
How it appeared to me.
Were they white lights?
I would give them, again, because of the atmosphere, more on the kind of yellowish side, if that makes sense.
And at that distance, did they appear to be, the size of a refrigerator or the size of a car? Or?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh man, okay. And again, it wasn't something that I should have written down right away. But once it happened, I was like, yeah, it happened. Okay. So now going back in my mind's eye, if I had to like compare it and go, it's at a rooftop level, how high are these homes? They're a story and a half high. So,
okay.
And size wise, as I look around my room now, I don't even know. Like, no, I don't know. I should. I won't say car size. No, I'll bring it down to a car, and say half the size of a small car, and maybe even smaller. Like, so, I couldn't even. I mean, I can imagine that the craft itself felt close because of the way the lights were. And I imagine then it to be not a huge craft. You talk about people like, or you've heard of people talk about, and the craft went on for miles. It was 2 football fields wide. That wasn't my impression.
Did you feel threatened?
I was scared. I was scared. I didn't have the thought like, they're going to beam me up. But I was scared, like, and my brain went right to, that's a UFO. They shouldn't be up there. I shouldn't be here. I gotta go.
Was there any noise?
No. No.
Did it move, or what? Was it stationary?
No. And I did not stick around to go, it's fascinating. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm just going to stay here and see what happens. Like, no. I just pivoted and I ran. Like, I ran with the dog, not in my hand, but I ran with the dog. And no, I was frightened and I didn't feel good. And like, I just like slammed into the door. Like I ran up the stairs and they're like, my husband was in the kitchen. I'm like, oh my God. And he said, what's wrong? But he's pretty much of a cool cucumber kind of guy. And I'm there, okay. And, I went through it like that, hyperventilating.
Did he go look to see what you might have seen?
No. We're talking about, somebody who, when I said I woke up from a position of laying down to sitting up, gasping for breath, crying, waking him up one day and saying, "Oh my God, I was out of my body." And he said, "Don't worry, you probably just had a dream. Don't worry about it." So,
Be a whole separate podcast on how spouses react to spiritual
yeah,
gifts or spirit.
and that's just one, of the reasons why I knew I could say things to Chloe, but I also, when she was a certain age, wasn't going to either. As she became an adult, then that was fine. And as she, is still moving forward, it's not something that's on her daily hit list, if you will. It's sort of like she gets it, she knows about it. Yep.
Right.
And that's sort of it for her. I mean, I practically had to, I don't know, like to get her to come on to the cast was like, can you want to come on? She goes, "Well, I don't know, Mom. It's such a, it's kind of boring, sort of like that." And, but thankfully she did agree to it. So, and
how about if,
yeah.
I'm sorry, did you want to add
No,
something?
I was just going to say, and she did say she would come back on, but even that, I'm not going to hold my breath. So,
Well, it'd be fascinating to ask her for some of the experiences she's had.
well, yes, she was supposed to come back on the show to talk about when her and I went to a prison in Ottawa that is now a hostel, and we together had experiences there. So that's what we were supposed to talk about. Yeah. And she was going to come up, but she became ill and whatnot. And her other own personal experiences. And really, she's just not really that into it anymore. But I'll try every now and then and see what happens, but I'm not going to force the issue on her.
Well, I appreciate it. And just to wrap this up, I would say that, as I said at the outset, the purpose of this wasn't to exploit the experiences, as interesting as they are, the paranormal experiences, the ghost stories, or and there's other podcasters I know who would love to have you talk about those kind of things.
I don't know why. They're really not that. My life is not, or my experiences, I don't feel that it's been that interesting. I've had pockets of what I would call mystical moments for myself that I have found interesting. But the paranormal stuff, yeah, it's happened. The supernatural stuff, and I will put the orbs in that category of supernatural, has been obviously interesting.
I agree. And my thought is, what's the point of all this? And that's what I'm really concerned about is,
well, what do you think the point is for you?
Spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
Becoming more aware spiritually of things outside of what we grew up with and we were taught as we were raised.
And you were also brought up as a Catholic. Do you believe in reincarnation?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. I read the same books and probably many other ones that you've also read. And it's not just the books, but it's what rings true to me. And most of it is not at odds with our Catholic faith, or my Catholic faith. It's just another dimension for me. Something that may not be spelled out specifically in the Bible, but I believe that exists. It just rings true to me. So what I don't believe in is, and I won't get off on this podcast about that, but just some things that deal with punishment and hell and judgment that I think were made to control us. And those are the things I have problems with.
It is the most bizarre thing because I too don't believe in, I'm not sure I believe in the purgatory. I know that story goes back even before the Bible, not even just with Catholicism. So, about the pit and people hanging out in there. And then that sort of morphed into something else during, I don't know what century, was that the 4th or the 6th? I don't know, BC. And even, again, I don't want to speak to faiths that I'm not a part of, but other faiths also talk about this pit, and the heat of the pit and things like that. So, I mean, I don't, I don't, I think maybe people that have had NDEs that have experienced, I was in hell, they experienced that. And it seems to be a consensus among NDEers, anyways, that you go to the place that you think you deserve or that you think exists. So if you like lakes or you like this or you like that, that's maybe one of the elements or one of the aspects. Don't know if that is the answer, but
I've heard the same concept. Like if you believe that you're going to be greeted by Saint Peter or Saint somebody, that's what happens, and they spirit arranges that for you so that when you make the transition, you see what you expect to see.
Yeah.
And eventually you go through a period where you adjust and heal, and then you figure, you learn more about what the truth is. But
yeah, and I think that happens for, I think, a lot of people. I even heard somebody recently talk about, you know what? If you don't want to reincarnate into a human form, then you don't have to. Or you can reincarnate into something else, or you can just hang out in that ball of light. And that's another interesting aspect. When you hear those stories, a lot of them refer to the ball of light. And some of them even call them orbs or orbs of light. So I find that that's kind of interesting. And maybe what I'm seeing might just be angels. It might be spirits. It might be people, spirits, just energy, just hanging out and coming through.
You've mentioned this, but you do think there is an intelligence associated with these orbs,
I
correct?
do. I do. And it's too much of a sort of a coincidence. If you look at, and there was no orbs in there, but if you look at like that video that I sent you about when I had the cat toy out of its little chamber on the table, and I again was compelled in there. Oh, okay, I've got to. Okay, I'll take the ball, and I'm supposed to do this for Mike. Okay, here we go. And oh, I'm supposed to tell Mike not to videotape them. Like, don't videotape the cat toy initially. Make that connection. And and when I say a message, it's not like I hear a voice. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I hear a different voice.
No, I understand completely, because I get the same thoughts, I guess, is what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I've only once had a voice that was not my own that I heard. But that's a whole other story. And it was from a person that did exist. Well, she was apparently deceased. At least she's still missing as far as I know, but who came to me. So that was like the only time that I can remember. And I'm not talking about mimic voices, which, as I've told you, Mike, had happened here in this home with myself and my husband, and of course, Chloe. But that's maybe for another podcast. I don't know.
Well, Kelly Jo, can you, I think it's probably time to wrap this particular session up, but can you just please, for my listeners, let them know how to find you and what you do?
Sure. They can go to the website, which is www.orbicaltimes.com, or you can just do orbicaltimes.com and it should come up.
Can you spell that? Because
sure. Orb, as in orbs. So ORBICLETIMES, all one word. Or not or, just something different. If you want to see the videos of the orbs, you can then check out my channel, which has the handle Spirit Orb Sightings. So that's singular, but Spirit Orb Sightings. That's the last is plural. So if you do @Spirit Orb Sightings, it should come up. And if you can't find it that way, you should have a link on the webpage somewhere.
So are those two different websites?
So one, the www is a website, and the handle one is YouTube.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I would just recommend, for those of you that haven't seen Kelly Jo's videos, they really are awesome and very different from mine that I have on my website, which are infrared light, but Kelly Jo's are done in color, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and anybody's listening, you can do it too. Just take your cell phone and put that flash on and try and make that connection. And I mean, I can say believe, but or don't. Don't, but you should be willing to make that connection. I think so that they, spirit will know that you're serious. I mean, why should they waste their energy on you? And don't scream and don't yell and don't demand. Take the silent way and the silent way to make that connection. At least that's what I do.
I will say also for listeners that I tried the technique that Kelly recommended because I was using my security cameras, as many of you know. But I took the cell phone and tried it as she describes. It did not work right away for me. I think it was maybe the second or third time I tried it, and I saw a definite, wonderful orb, which surprised the heck out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's only happened to me maybe twice, so I don't see them regularly. I did buy the cat toy that Kelly Jo recommended.
How many did you buy, Mike?
I bought 3 of them.
Yes. You need to put them in different rooms. Exactly.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
But what Kelly Jo was alluding to was she told me I was trying to film it, commanding it to turn on, and it wasn't doing a doggone thing. And then wasn't filming it started. Actually, I was just walking past it and it started blinking. I wasn't even walking, honestly. I was just looking at it and it started blinking. So I do think that there's something to the cat toy, as silly as that sounds. And I plan to continue to explore that.
Yeah, and if anybody goes on the website, I did put up a video that involves my video to you, Mike, but also videos that I took back, I'd say in December, judging by what's around in the room, of the cat toy lighting up and a glass of water beside it to show you that nothing is moving. There's no tremors happening
to make a great idea. Cool.
Yet to make the cat toy do that. And then I have another one. You can see the cat toy, which I love, which I have a few of them. I put into a salt rock candle holder, and it is lighting up. And then what do you see come out is the orb. So awesome. I call it tag your orb it, and it comes up and it touches me and then it flies away. So those are all good sort of reference points, if you will, for somebody who might be interested. It's on the website. Mm-hmm.
At Orbital Times?
It is at orbitaltimes.com. Yeah, I didn't put it up on YouTube. I just left it in its entirety without, when I say editing, I mean, I usually cut it so you won't hear, whatever sounds I'm making. As you know, on my YouTube site, and, I will put an intro in, or I'll put music or something like that. So this is just what I sent you. It's just pretty much raw footage of what's going on.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Okay.
Well, Kelly Jo, thank you so much for joining me on this, and
my pleasure.
When we complete it, and I look forward actually to interviewing you again as we continue this journey. If that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I can't imagine about what, although I can, and sure. That sounds great. Whenever you're ready, give me a shout, and we'll get all our technical difficulties worked out. Hopefully by then.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, that wraps up part 2 of my interview with Kelly Jo. Thank you for listening. If you find this useful or of service to you, I appreciate you maybe leaving me a review wherever you got this podcast, Apple or Spotify or Android, whatever. And I really appreciate any comments that you leave. And you can do that either on my website, mikenicholas.com, or, of course, where you happen to download your podcast. And my email, if you can reach out to me, is mike@mikenicholas.com. Thanks again. Bye-bye.